Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my Blood Forest mug. This is from Fable Coffee. It's these really awesome stoneware mugs. I've become like obsessed with these because I swear they keep your drink hotter longer, and I just love them, and they have so many cute designs that they come out with that are like limited time. And they're coming out with a mug collection. I think they're releasing some in June, July, and August. I believe that was the time frame. It might just be July and August. But they're coming out with like 10 new mugs or something. It's a bunch of mugs. And they're so cute. And if you love mugs and you love stoneware mugs and you would like to get one, I'm still a rep for them until August. So you can use my code RENEGADE10. But yeah, I absolutely love them. I post more about that kind of stuff on my Instagram. So if you don't follow me on that, you should. But that's all of that for now. Today's video is going to be my May reading wrap-up and a little bit of some Star Wars talk, as it should be, you know? So first off, let me just talk about this experience that I had that was amazing. So I went to the Fan Expo in Philly, and at this Fan Expo, there was like cosplay, and there was actors, actresses, voice actor, actresses you could meet, and it was super fun. Like Michael J. Fox was there, there's a lot of Back to the Future people, it was just super fun, but Hayden Christensen was there, and I got to meet him, and it's probably one of the best moments of my whole life. I love Hayden Christensen. He's been my hero since I was very small, which I told him to his face. Oh my gosh. He plays Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader in the prequels and in the Kenobi series. And I just love him. Like, he's literally been my hero since I was like 9 years old when I was watching these movies. When they first came out, it was so cool to meet him in person, and he was precious. He was so sweet, so nice. He was there for so long, meeting all of his fans, and was just like the best person ever. And they did a panel that was like after the expo was closed. I got to go to his panel. He was such a sweet, like genuine human. And he just like said he wants to like plant lavender, and he's just precious, and I want to protect him at all costs. And I also want to be his best friend. So if he ever sees this, please hang out with me, Hayden. We can watch Star Wars. We can plant lavender. We could pot plants. We could literally do anything you wanted. Get coffee, literally anything. And I would have the best time just chatting it up with you. That was like a super amazing experience. I was able to get his autograph and a picture with him. Just like, it's still hard for me to believe that happened, because Star Wars has just been such a huge part of my life, and he's like the Star Wars person I would love to meet and got to meet. So it was just amazing. And I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because we're talking about Star Wars books today also. And if you play Jedi Survivor, I haven't finished it because I had a lot of stuff going on. I'm currently playing Jedi Survivor and loving it. Are any of you playing Jedi Survivor? What do you think of the new stances and modes of transportation? What do you think of those? I think they're super cool. I definitely have my favorites of the stances, and I feel like it's really interesting because of how you can tailor it to your playing style, and I feel like everybody's will be different. So that's fun. And I love Star Wars, video games, books, literally anything to do with Star Wars. So if you would ever like me to talk more about Star Wars, I would be delighted. I do talk a lot about Star Wars on my TikTok. I would also love to do Star Wars videos if that's something you guys would want to see. Now that I've gushed and ranted and raved about meeting my hero, let's get into the books that I read in May. So the first one was the first book in the Padme trilogy by E.K. Johnston, and that is Queen's Shadow. This book is establishing the Queen's Shadow, so it's all of her like handmaidens basically, but also how they developed this, I guess, code and way of talking to where they could body double each other. So Padme could pretend to be a handmaiden, handmaidens could pretend to be Padme, and they were like called the Queen's Shadow because they were supposed to be not like unnoticed. And it was really cool to dive into more of that. Like, it's not like the exciting, well, not all of it was like the exciting battles and things like that you know and love of Star Wars. There's not really a lot of Jedi action. There's some, but not a lot. But I thought it was very interesting how you got to expand on Padme's story, even though it's not, you know, the really exciting bits all the time. It's in between the movies. So the movies have a lot more of that, but it was really cool to see the interpersonal relationships and just how it's all developed and bringing the other characters more to life. it was a lot of fun. And this book in particular is following Padme after she steps down from being Queen Amidala and is trying to step into being a senator. So that transition. And I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed how it filled in the gaps of Padme's story. And I just liked that you get it's a different world of Star Wars. Like, we do focus on the Jedi and the Sith because we love it. But this is a different side of it. This is more of the senator side, the non-magical side, if you will. So it was really cool to learn more about her. I love Padme as a character, and I was excited to continue this series. So I did give this one 3 stars. The next book that I read in this Star Wars journey in May was Revan, which is it's an Old Republic novel entitled Revan because it's following Darth Revan. He's not Darth anymore at this point, he's Revan. You're following him. He is kind of an interesting character, and I think I would have liked to read more about him in his previous parts than this one. But he was a Jedi, and then he turned to the dark side, and then he kind of saw the light again and came back. But because he broke all of those codes, the Jedi don't accept him back into their order and to the temple, but they kind of use him as a weapon, which is kind of an interesting place to be. So he doesn't really live the Jedi way. He has a wife, like, right off the bat in this book. So obviously he's not a full Jedi, but I was really excited to learn more about Revan, and I think I would like it more if I was playing the video games and learn more about it that way, because this, I didn't really like it. I thought it was okay, and there were parts of it that I was really interested in, but I would say most of it was just kind of subpar for me, which was crazy because I thought this would be such a good book and I would love it so much. But it really focuses on, or I guess it really uses the fact that he's married and has a wife. So right off the bat, they hear about this like looming threat of the Sith, which is a race, and I actually did not know that. So that was interesting. That did enlighten me on that the Sith was a race of beings, and they were red-skinned, and they had like these like tentacle things that would come off of, not tentacles, but it would be like these fleshy protrusions that would hang off of their face, and that was the Sith race, and they had dark side abilities. That was just so cool. And that's why the Sith, as in like dark side users, adopted the name of the Sith. Crazy. So they think the Sith are eradicated, but they hear this like looming threat that maybe they're not, and so Revan decides he's going to go investigate this. And his wife is obviously pregnant, so she can't go with him, even though she was a Jedi too. So stupid. So I really didn't like that right off the bat. And then he's like imprisoned for like 8 years, 10 years. And because he's imprisoned, that's like a big part of the plot. Like, you just skip ahead 8-10 years, and his wife's like, well, don't know what happened to him, hope he's okay. And then you cut back to him and he's kind of like fighting with the other Sith. And it was just, I didn't like how the story went. I didn't like what they did with that. Some of the action sequences and stuff were fine, but the way they skipped around and skipped like 8 years and didn't tell and just like kind of summarized events that happened, I just did not like it. And I was really, really disappointed. I thought it would just be something I would, again, love, because I thought I'd love learning about Revan, but this was not the way to do it, I don't think. So I was pretty disappointed, didn't love it. I did give it 3 stars. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because there were parts of the action I did find interesting. But if I was looking back on it now, I think I probably would have given it like 2 stars. Unfortunately, because I was excited about it. The next one that I was able to read, even though I hate this edition, I listened to it on audiobook, was The Lords of the Sith by Paul S. Kemp. I really liked this one. This was really cool. You're following Darth Vader, and then Palpatine's in the story. You're not following his perspective, but you are following him. So you're following Vader and Palpatine and Cham Syndulla, which was really fun. And there's another character in here. What's her name? And another freedom fighter character, female Twi'lek, and I cannot remember her name. I can't remember her name for the life of me, and I just tried to look really fast and just couldn't find it in the 2 seconds that I took to do so. But really interesting characters to follow. I liked this a lot. You get a lot more of Vader and his perspective and his inner turmoil at times, but also his inner thoughts, like what he thinks about what's going on, because you don't really get that. Obviously, you don't get thoughts and stuff like that in movies a lot. You don't really get that. You don't get his motivations. You don't get what's going on in his head. You don't get if he's just pure rage. He mostly is. or if he's like feeling sad or whatever. You just don't get that. And getting more of his perspective was super interesting, especially for me, because Vader is my favorite character, probably of all time, but he's my favorite in Star Wars. Anakin and Vader are just like my man. And you get to see him thinking things through, and like things will happen and he'll have flashbacks to Padme or the Clone Wars or Obi-Wan. And that must be so difficult. And he'll use it to fuel his anger, but he'll also like ruminate on it. But his master, Palpatine, is very sensitive to it. So if he catches Vader thinking about something, he'll be like, are you thinking about something? Are you okay? Are you whatever? Not because he cares about him, obviously, but because he's trying to keep him under control. And it was so cool to see that dynamic play out. Because you know they don't like each other, love each other, care about one another. But Vader will continually submit to him, even when he thinks he might be waiting for an opportunity to take him down. And Palpatine's always on edge too, because they're Sith. It was so cool, man. And it just made me... So I went into this thinking I was just going to get, you know, some BA action of Vader, some BA Vader. But this actually made me feel for him a little bit more, which is so sad because his story is so tragic and he's just such a cool character. And it did lean into him more being trapped than just being a BA character. You get to see him being like, I could try to kill Palpatine right now. And Palpatine being like, are you thinking about killing me? And he's like, like, it's crazy. While it does lean into more of that in his, I don't want to say emotions, because it's not just like you're just sitting in Vader's feelings, but just seeing more of his perspective and what's going on with his inner thoughts and turmoil. You do also get to see him in action, and he is such a boss. It is so cool. It was also kind of interesting to get Hera Syndulla's dad in this, because I didn't really like him in the Clone Wars, but I didn't mind following his perspective in this book, even though you don't agree with everything they do all the time. It was kind of cool to see where his perspectives could possibly come from and how it like evolves. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. It was a really good time, super interesting. I am very excited to continue reading about Sith in Star Wars. Oh, I gave that book 4 stars. The next one I read was Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston. This is book 2 in the Padme trilogy. This one is following Padme as she becomes queen, and then the assembling of her handmaidens. So it's kind of like a little bit of backwards timeline. But I didn't expect to like this one more than the first one, which I did. And it was really cool, a lot of fun. I liked the intricacies of everything. And there is but there is overlap with the Phantom Menace in this book. It's in the same timeline as that, which is really cool. So you get to see a lot of the Phantom Menace aspects, or, you know, her talking to Qui-Gon, developing this rapport with Qui-Gon. That was really cool. And there was a lot of scenes where like things are playing out. Like I could see it happening in the movie, but it was from this character's perspective that isn't really focused on in the movie at all. And you're like, that's why that happened. So that was really fun. And I did really enjoy that. I thought the first one would be my favorite, or the third one. And this one really surprised me because I did enjoy it more than the first. I give it 4 stars. Which leads me to Queen's Hope. This is book 3 in the Padme trilogy and the last book in the trilogy. This is following after Attack of the Clones. I think it's like right after Attack of the Clones. This is following Padme, but also Anakin. You get to see their relationship on Naboo like immediately after the Attack of the Clones movie, where they get married, and it's kind of like the beginning of their relationship. It was really cute and really cool and heartbreaking. But yeah, so you're following them post that, but also as she continues to go into her role as a senator and how she's going to balance that with Anakin. And anything Padme, Anakin in general, I am about. So this was fun. I did really like it. These books kind of like ebb and flow with the action and the slow parts, but I did like this one, and like I said, it's set right after the Clone Wars with Anakin, and it just involves her relationship with Anakin. But I think when it comes to Legends right in front of me, I think when it comes to the Padme trilogy in general, you kind of have to go into these books knowing it's just going to be filling in the blanks, filling in the gaps. It's not adding a whole other movie to, you know, the series. It's just filling in tiny bits of gaps that you didn't have before. It's not gonna give you like a ton of action or plot points because that's already happening in the movies, you know? I think you do have to go into it knowing that it's not gonna be a movie, it's not an extra movie, but there is like little things you get to enjoy and little like Easter eggs or pieces of her and Anakin's story that you're like, oh yeah, I never thought about that, how that would work or how that would affect them. Yes. I think if you're really interested in that and just kind of how all of it plays out, that you would like these books. But I did enjoy them for what they were, and I did give Queen's Hope 4 stars. I will take this moment to address Battle Scars. Who wrote that? Ugh, I can't remember who wrote it. But Battle Scars, it's following Cal Kestis, so it's following the character in Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. So it's set between the events of Fallen Order and Survivor, so it's obviously after Fallen Order, before Jedi Survivor. So I thought it'd be really cool to read before I started playing Jedi Survivor. And I was actually like kind of delaying playing because I wanted to read this book, and I started it. I think I got halfway through. I might not have been halfway through, but I was several hours in. And I could not stand it. I did not like that book. I DNF'd it, which is amazing because I really struggle DNFing books because I feel like I'm going to miss out on it. It's going to get better. I'm going to love it, something. And this is a Star Wars book, and I DNF'd that sucker like nobody's tomorrow. Wow, was it disappointing to me. It was really focusing on Marin and her like sexuality and relationships, and that's not really what I want when I'm going into a Star Wars book. I want action, I want plot, I want politics, you know, I want things like that. I'm not looking for romance, to be honest, unless it's Padme and Anakin. And I was just really shocked at how it was being written and this way the story was going. And Cal was kind of painted as kind of dumb, like kind of unintelligent, which is not how he is in the games. And it was starting to ruin characters for me, and I was afraid it was going to, so I stopped reading it. And I'm not going to finish it. It was a DNF, and I was very disappointed in that. And the final book that I was able to read in May in this wonderful Star Wars month was Brotherhood by Mike Chen. This was such a treasure. I loved this book. I went into it being like Anakin and Obi-Wan, what could go wrong? But I didn't think I would like this one the most, to be honest, and I did. It was so good. It's a little gem of a Star Wars novel. I loved getting the development of the dynamic of Obi-Wan and Anakin. This is set kind of similar to one of the Padme books. This is set directly after Attack of the Clones and the beginning of the Clone Wars. So it's delving into how the Clone Wars are coming about, that the Jedi are now being called generals and they're being thrown into the military with all these with this clone army. And they're like, how are we supposed to navigate this? We're not generals. We're not supposed to be military. We're supposed to be peacekeepers. What's going on? And they're kind of being shoved into that. And Anakin is also now a Jedi Knight. He went from Padawan to Jedi Knight, and Obi-Wan is adjusting to this, and he keeps going like Padawan or whatever, and he's like, he's not my Padawan, he is an equal. And it was really cool to see them both adjusting, Anakin having more freedom while still being looked down upon a little bit, and Obi-Wan being a Jedi Knight as well, and them being equals, but also Obi-Wan's kind of now being given this opportunity in the council, at least temporarily. And it also talks about Mace Windu having this like animosity towards Anakin and that they're aware of it. It was just really cool to see everything the author did with this novel and with everything you could do about it. They also pull in Padme and that dynamic between Padme and Anakin and Obi-Wan. And I just thought it was so good. I loved it so much. And a lot of this book is set on Cato Neimoidia, which is so cool because you get that a little bit in Phantom Menace. You get like the culture of them, but you don't really get to see their planet. And so it was really cool to see a story set on that planet and the different things going on with the Trade Federation and the Separatists and the Republic and how all of it's kind of very delicate at the moment. You also get, I was checking to make sure this was in the description because I don't want to spoil it, but you get Asajj Ventress in this as well. This book was so cool. I think it's in this book too that Anakin talks about how much he hates sand, and I loved it. Oh man, you should read this if you really like Anakin, Obi-Wan, that dynamic. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm kind of kicking myself for sleeping on it for a year, for not having that much motivation to read it. That was stupid. It was so good. And this is a canon novel. But yeah, this made my heart happy and made it even more difficult to know what comes later in the Star Wars universe. But I highly recommend this book if you like Anakin Obi-Wan stuff. It was very good. I gave it 4.5 stars, and it was very nostalgic and fun for me. Well, those are all the books that I was able to read in May. It was a glorious Star Wars month, and I got to gush to you a little bit more about some Star Wars stuff. And as always, if you would love to hear me talk about Star Wars stuff, let me know. But as for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.